Hi, this is Carrie Schell from On Point Quilter. In today's video tutorial, we're going to start with a couple of EasyDraw blocks, and you will learn how to create some equilateral triangle quilts. You will be amazed at how easy this is. Okay, I've opened Electric Quilt, and I'm going to select New Project, and I'm going to call this one Equilateral Triangle Play. And I'll select OK. Okay, I'm going to design a quilt from scratch. And under New Quilt, I am going to go to the very end and open the library. And in the EQ library, I'm going to go to Layouts by Style, go to the hexagonal layouts, and I want to select, actually I think I'm going to select this one here, which has those 6 equilateral triangles in the center. And I'm going to select Edit to Quilt Work Table. And so that is going to open this in my quilt work table. So the reason that I like this particular format is these custom layouts. If you put a square in one of these equilateral triangles, it will actually cut that square in half. So let me give you an example. Let me use this default 9 patch. Click on it in here and you can see it basically presents just half of that block. So that has a lot of possibilities for creating some very interesting quilts. But I do want to simplify this design. I like these particular elements, but I don't want the entire block. So I'm going to go to my block tools. I'm going to use Adjust. And I'm going to select each of the blocks and use the Delete key on my keyboard to delete them. Okay, let me go to the Border tab and let me delete my one border. And back to my Design tab, and I want to measure this because I've got a really big workspace here and I would like to bring that down at least somewhere around the size of my quilt. So I'm going to use the tape measure and measure across. So it's about 25 inches, and if I measure top to bottom, about 21 inches, which actually is probably a pretty good size for a small tabletopper or a wall quilt. So I'm going to now go back to the Layout tab, and I'm going to click on Maintain the existing block sizes when resizing, and I am going to bring this to 25 by 20. And I'm going to go back to the Design tab. And now I'm completely off my work table, but with my Adjust tool still on, I am going to select everything. And I had to draw a larger block because these are actually half blocks and include some of those corners. So I want to make sure I have everything picked up, and then I'm going to just drag that up to my workspace. It doesn't have to be exact, but it is just nicer to have that actually on the workspace. And I'm going to select Fit to Work Table so we can see a little bit better. And with my Adjust tool on, I'm also going to turn off the Show Grid because there really isn't any reason for that. Now I can go ahead and use the Set Block tool, and I'm going to go ahead and put that block in the remaining equilateral triangles. Now it looks like it's showing me the whole block, but if I use the refresh screen, it will clean up very, very nicely. I can also use this to do a little bit of recoloring. So I'm going to go to the Fabric Tools, use my eyedropper, find this one, And then I'm just going to click on every other patch in the center. Now let me give one other option here. I'm going to use randomize, select shift hue, and I'm going to check out some other options. And again, this sort of moves around the color spectrum. And when I find something I like, I am going to click on the map to fabrics and click on my quilt. And it recolors my quilt very nicely. Now, the last thing I want to do for this particular quilt is actually add a binding. And I could measure and put, the four corners around it, but I have come up with a method for what I call a cheater binding. And so to do that, I'm going to go ahead and go to my block work table, and I'm going to do a new block, applique, and I'm going to do a motif. Now in my drawing tools, I have shapes listed, and one of the shapes is a hexagon, and I'm going to use that to create my background. But before I do so, I need to check my snapping options, and I do want to turn off snap to grid points, and I'm going to go ahead and keep on snap to nodes and auto join, even though technically it doesn't really matter because I only have one shape. But I did want to make sure that snap to grid is off. I'm going to select my hexagon, and I'm going to select one of the grid lines, and I'm going to drag a hexagon, and I'm going to try to follow that graph paper line, and so that I don't have any jogs in my top and my bottom. So that looks pretty good, and once I've done that, I'm going to click on center in block, and I'm going to go to the color tab, and I'm going to go ahead and color that block and add it to my sketchbook. Now I'm going to go back to my quilt work table, and I need to put that behind this. Now my problem is I am on layer 1, and motifs have to be added on layer 2 unless we make one change, and that is to go into our work table options, go into setting blocks, and turn off the do not allow motifs to be set on layer 1. So I'm going to do that. Select OK. I need to figure out my size. So if I had been smart and kept my notes, I would have this. But it's 25 inches across, so I need to be larger than that. So I'm going to go to my block tools, do set block, and I'm going to go to my motifs tab, and I'm going to drag that in, and I'm going to use my adjust tool, and I'm going to change this to 26 by 26. And recognize that it's going to do the outside of the block. So since I designed this in a square block, I can put a square number in the block size. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select center horizontally and center vertically. And then I'm going to go ahead and select send to back. Now I do need to do some movements on that, and so I can just drag that down so I've got that better positioned. And one thing I'm going to check is make sure that snap block position to grid is turned off, and that gives me a little bit finer movement in terms of adjusting this. So once I've got it where I like it, I can go ahead and select Add to Project Sketchbook. Now, if I want to see what it looks like without the black lines, right, because when we piece that, you're not going to see black lines, but just see some seam allowances, I'm going to select Hide Show Quilt. And I like the way this one looks. Now I want to create one other option, and so in my block tools I'm going to do an open library, and that's going to take me to the block library. I'm going to go under Foundation Pieced Log Cabins, and I'm going to select the 1/4-7 log cabin, and I'm going to add that to my project sketchbook and close. So now with my set block, I'm going to select that log cabin, and I'm going to replace my other blocks, and I'm going to go to my colored fabric tools, use my randomize, and for this one I'm just going to click on map to fabrics, use my paintbrush, and go to my fabrics, and I'm going to select another green for the outside, and I've made another variation, and I'm going to go ahead and add that to the project sketchbook. Thanks so much for watching. For additional tips and techniques, please check out my newsletter at www.onpointquilter.com. And while you're there, check out my Techno Quilter program, which will help you unleash the power of EQ8 the easy peasy way.